Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with Caletta Harris. Caletta Harris is the owner of Reel to Reel Production. She received a vision to start her own production company while attending the University of South Carolina. While studying broadcast journalism, she was fascinated with the creative aspect from behind the camera and the process of producing videos. She's currently the director, the producer, and everything of No Address.
We're being harassed. We can't be in the parks. We can't be at the bus transit stations. Law enforcement is subject to pull up on us and tell us, hey, you can't sit here, you can't stand there, you have to move on.
They took up all the benches in town so that nobody could sit down anywhere.
I done went to jail down here in Raleigh, North Carolina, 4 times since I've been down here.
I don't think it should be a crime for being homeless.
It's more like out of sight, out of mind.
How do you criminalize somebody's situation?
They're called ordinances, but they're usually city laws that make it a crime to sleep in public, to sit in public, to lie down in public, to sleep in a car, to beg for help, to eat sometimes in public. They just take a variety of different forms.
They was talking about rounding homeless people up and put them in something like a concentration camp.
Our literature says 3.5 million people. If people knew the true number of homeless people, if we documented that true number of homeless people, we don't have the resources to address the problem. And that is a statement directly from an elected official.
Since 1995, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has not given us any money to build housing.
Gentrification is the only housing policy that this city has. Atlanta's housing policy is gentrification. That's it.
I want to do more for myself and getting myself out of this homelessness so I can pay for me a home.
But when you have no address, getting just a decent, regular, scheduled job, virtually impossible.
Before we get into her docu-series, let's learn a little bit more about Caletta. Caletta, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am doing fine. Caletta, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I met you in another program, and I was completely intrigued by what you're doing out there with the homeless, with the docu-series that you're putting together. Tell us a little bit about how did you get into doing that?
How did I get into creating this documentary? So first of all, like you said, I own a video production company, and I was in South Carolina at the time. And I was at my downtown office, and I read the newspaper, and city council wanted to do something about their homeless situation. And they basically had 3 options. It was either leave town, go to a shelter that's on the outskirts of town, or be subject to jail if they're caught on the streets. And I'm like, are you serious? These are your solutions? So I, communicate with everyone all the time. I'm just, open like that and, free-spirited. So when I talk to the individuals that are unsheltered, I kind of just put myself in their shoes. I'm an empath, so I'm like, what if that were me? And I just had to leave town with nowhere to go, and then if I go to jail, what does that really look like for my life, And so I wanted to do something. And I said, well, I have a production company. I can just document what's going on around me. And hence 7 years later, I turned in this project called No Address. And it actually became a series because I had so much content. And I wanted to see, well, if this is going on in South Carolina, what's going on around the world? So now it's a 3-part series. The next series is Atlanta, Georgia, and then the following will be different cities in California. So South Carolina is the first one, and I launched that or released that in January of this year.
Now that is already available?
It is available. It is streaming now for a limited time on XOD app, but you can go to our website at noaddressdocumentary.com and click the direct link to take you there.
Now, your business is really doing commercials and all these kinds of things. How has this affected your actual work, your money maker? Because I imagine the documentary series, if this has been going on for 7 years, and for the amount of content that I've seen thus far, it seems like that was a pretty large endeavor.
It really was. And that's why it took 7 years, because I was still working amongst all of that. I had to get paid first, right? And I had to do the documentary. So that's why I would take maybe a year off here and there, or a few months, and then I'll get back with it. So I really got heavy in it in 2017. That's when it was like full force. But I got the preliminaries from 2013. That's when this actual incident occurred.
Now, usually when you do docuseries and documentaries, and when you start talking to people, in fact, I've made it a habit to try not to come to any situation where I'm dealing with others with preconceived notions. What that gives me the ability to do is, when I'm talking to you, as I'm talking to you right now, is to expand based on what you're saying, expand based on what you're putting out. I imagine then that you have learned quite a bit that you hadn't known about those people that are living on the streets, and the diversity, not only in class, the diversity not only in how they got there, but each of them has different stories, right?
Exactly. Everyone has a story, and I really didn't have a lot of preconceived notions, because like I said, I communicate with the unsheltered all the time. So everyone's life was different. The reason why they got into those situations was different. So I wasn't judging. I just was curious of, how does this really happen, and why is it continual with some people, as they call chronically homeless, after a year or so. So the individuals that I followed, I mean, their stories are amazing, and to look at them would not be your typical, stereotypical homeless person, if you will. Like, some were vets.
Give me an example of one that most had an impression on you.
Well, they all did. They all did, because I just formed a connection with them, and I'm still communicating with a lot of people to this day. So it was a bond. I encountered a man named John Holmes, and they called him the homeless man that sleeps in a tent. And he was homeless for 13 years.
13 years.
13 years, like going into different shelters or whatever. So going through that process, he was going through a lot with substance use at one time, and then he checked himself into rehab, and then he went to different shelters here and there, and still working during this whole process. And so he just got tired of the systematic way that they handle shelters. So he was like, look, I have all these skills. I was in the military. I did this. You were a Marine. So he built his own tent, had electricity, had like a queen-size bed, like all of this in the middle of nowhere, and lived his life. And he would go places and take a shower and do everything. And he's also the president of an organization called Homeless Helping Homeless, that just was magnificent for the unsheltered population, to get them back on their feet, to know that you are not hopeless, you are not helpless. And they also put on a yearly event where they do a talent showcase for just unsheltered individuals, and they do a silent auction, and they'll get paid at the end. I mean, it was just brilliant how they would come together, and they were big on fighting to rescind this vote to criminalize homelessness.
And this was in South Carolina.
This was in South Carolina. So his story is very fascinating. Now he's moved on and has a home, and he's in another state now. And then another couple, he was not really homeless, but he stayed with her because he wanted to make sure that she was safe on the streets. So they met an individual that got him a job. They ended up moving into a RV trailer. And then, well, the sad part about it was the job that he trained for the day he walked in. It was a nuclear plant. The day he walked in was the day that they shut down the nuclear plant. So that was like, I mean, event after event after event after event, you know, unexpected situations, but you have to see how that story unfolds when you watch the documentary. And then there was another guy, his wife just, you know, she was on medication for a while. She had cancer, and then I guess the medication got to her and she kicked him out. So he had like 4 children, all these grandchildren, lived 5-acre lot. He was a welder, all of these beautiful things, and then ended up on the streets, you know, until his health got really bad and an organization noticed it and gave him a home. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but everybody's story is unique.
I think that, but it's so important for people to know that, because, you know, everybody think, I mean, yes, everybody's story is unique, but then they always have that point of intersectionality. We are home, we are, well, I noticed you have a new word that, for me at least, and that is the unsheltered. Is that?
Yes, because homeless, I interchange, of course, because most people are familiar with that term, but it just makes you think like it's a dis-ease or something. Oh, you're homeless. You know, I don't using that as a stigma for people, but, you know, they just don't have a home. Most just home, you know what I mean? Nothing's wrong with them. Some have mental, you know, there's a lot of categories of homelessness, if you will, but there's a lot of categories for people with homes as well. You know, a lot of people have substance use, you know, abuse use, and some are alcoholics and some have mental issues, you know, but they just have a home. But you want to ostracize the ones that don't.
Everybody have their demons, I guess. Now, what's your expectation? Are you going to take this docuseries to, what is that big documentary festival that they have out there? I guess somewhere in Utah, I believe, or?
Well, they have Cannes and Sundance.
Yeah.
The Cannes just happened last week, so that's over and done with. But I want to go bigger. I'm in talks with some producers right now to see when the industry really opens back up, to see what we can do with this documentary. So I have a few options on how I can turn this into a really big series, because the goal is to not just talk about the destitution of everything and, oh, woe them, but practical solutions. And a lot of cities and states are doing wonderful things that we can kind of cross-pollinate ideas and implement those in different cities. So that's the goal. And there are also bills on, you know, legislature, there are bills on the books to end homelessness and affordable housing. So that's the main thing. And my goal, my personal goal, is to create my own village of affordable alternative housing.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, yes. So I want to build like container home villages. You know, they have the tiny home villages. But
yes.
I'm real into container homes because they are very sturdy and they can withstand Category 5 hurricanes. And
they stack on each other as well, right?
Build up. Yes. So you saving, you know, infrastructure and space, and you can put a lot on the land. So that's my goal, is to obtain land and build these villages and employ former homeless people that are empathetic and understand, you know, the circumstances, and just to be able to provide more resources for people and really rehabilitate people, mind, body, and spirit. Because I want to have the whole organic farm. I'm a farmer myself. So, you know, when you feed yourself good, nutritious food, it just changes your mind, body, and spirit.
Did you say you're a farmer as well?
I am a farmer. I have a farm team. Shout out to my farm team. We're called the Pharmacists in South Carolina, and we are on an acre lot, just growing massive amounts of food.
So wait, you see why I tell you I like to let things progress? I like this. So you actually have an acre of land where you guys farm in the city. What city?
In Columbia, South Carolina.
Wow. And what do you grow?
Oh, wow. So what we're growing now, we have tomatoes, we have squash, we have lemon cucumbers, we have regular cucumbers, arugula, we did potatoes, a bunch of herbs. We're doing sage and basil. We're doing corn now on the other part of the land. So we have grown a lot of food.
In 1 acre.
On 1 acre. Oh, yes, you can do a lot with an acre. That's just half an acre of what I just named. So we just built on the other, started planting on the other half acre.
Wow, that is great. Now,
And
let me
we
ask you,
wanna
I don't know,
start with a little bit first, to see how that goes, and then now we're expanding.
you're expanding. Now, South Carolina, you can grow almost, not all the way, but almost year round, right?
Correct.
Do you have maybe some what do you call those buildings that you can grow year round in?
The greenhouse.
Greenhouses?
Yes, we utilize those as well.
Wow, I'm impressed. So here we go from documentary from the homeless. We also have sustainability with gardens and reusability with containers. I mean, I think you're starting to have the whole pro-environmental picture as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm an earth sign, so I'm all about protecting the earth and nature. And
Good, excellent. Now, what do you want? I know what your plans are, what you want to do for the homeless. I also know that what you want to do about sustainability with now that you're talking about your gardens. Ultimately, what is the path that you see forward?
The path that I see forward is to continue the series wherever it takes me. Like me and one of my colleagues are talking about doing a countrywide trip to go to each state and document. So that can be like a mini series, like a 20-minute series or 15-minute series in each city that we stop at and, do outreach and document.
I think that is such an excellent idea. I had for this, what we do here at Politics Done Right, my goal was to get a truck, stamp Politics Done Right on it, and go talk to America. Because what we say all the time is that mainstream media doesn't really talk to real people. And what we want to do is start talking to real people. And that plan that you have, I think it's an excellent plan. Caletta, why don't you tell me a little bit about the documentary and how people can actually get to it and how people can help you to do what I think is something that's magnanimous.
Well, yes, you can go to the website. All the information is on there at noaddressdocumentary.com. We also have a podcast out. I'm on my 9th episode. Yay! And it's very informative. A lot of good information that we teach you. And we also have tips every week, so you can implement that when you don't know what to do. Like, oh, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. So all of that is on the podcast. So if you go to our articles page, there's an article. The first article is called Housing Not Handcuffs. And if you can sign up to be an advocate, they would send you a lot of information on what you can do in your communities. So I would definitely recommend following that campaign and following the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty. They have great webinars to talk about the unsheltered. So yes, so to watch the documentary, you go to noaddressdocumentary.com.
Caletta, we'll have all that information in the blog post for this particular issue. Now, Caletta, what haven't I asked you that you just want to get out there and say, look, you didn't ask me that, but I need to say this?
I just say that people should connect. We are so disconnected right now with just so much going on, a lot of things, granted, you have a reason to be, but I feel like our human connection has become lost in the wind because of social media and everything else that we think we're connected to. But when you get that human-to-human connection, your mindset starts changing. And that's what I want to do, bring awareness first. Because a lot of people have preconceived notions of what they think the unsheltered looks like. They don't understand that it is a big business. And that's why people are constantly going in this rat race and keep hitting a door, but they're trying. And then after a while, things start deteriorating. You give up hope. You lose hope because you're not getting the answers that you want. And it's systematic, and you do not want to fall in the system. So if we can just continue to help our brothers and sisters in need, especially now, because a lot of resources aren't being provided because of COVID. And we have to understand, because of COVID, so many more people will become unsheltered, So how do we look at that? So when we start taking care of one another first, then the love spreads, the energy spreads. So I feel like we just need to acknowledge those that we see on the streets and not run away or think everyone's a criminal because it should not be a crime to not have a home.
Caletta Harris, thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right. This has been very inspiring. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.